Welcome back, dear friends, to another Kohan Duels video. We have the epic conclusion of BoNT versus Tau from the Kohan Ascension tournament. Game 1 was epic on Destiny. Game 2 was less epic, but still great on Cave of Fear. Go back and watch them if you haven't. I am joined today by my dear friend Flute. Are you there?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. We're here to look at game number 3 here and see who wins the series. It is on Vargen, and that was... it would have been BoNT's choice for this last game. And yeah, I'm really excited. I actually don't know who wins the series yet. I think you do, but don't tell me. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, Vargen's a good map. Yeah, especially for Royalist, they can put a lot of pressure on you early game. We can might see some of that from BoNT. He plays pretty conservatively and pretty safe in macro game, but we might see something aggressive out of him.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a really good chance. It's game 3. He really wants to finish it out, and he might go slightly against his usual play style just to go with what he knows is the optimal strategy. But yeah, Vargen is a good map. It's been surprising how many good games we've seen on this map, to be honest. I recently rewatched that first game with you and Wintertoes from like last summer. That was like an hour-long back and forth in this map, and it was such a good game. So
Yeah.
let's hope we see something as epic as that from here. All right, let's go into it.
Right.
In the north, we have Tau as the Nationalist, and in the south, we have BoNT as the Royalist. And BoNT is going here for a settler opening. Pretty standard. I imagine he's going to get some scouts on top of that, huh?
Yeah, probably collect his rune gold with the scouts. Maybe check out what the enemy's doing.
And over here, we have Tau going for a settler first, which is pretty surprising. He's gone different builds every single time so far. I believe he went engineer first on Destiny, and then he went scout first on Caves, and now in Vargen he's going for the settler first. What do you think of that?
Settler first is a little bit risky, especially on these small maps, because you expect perhaps to get harassed by an enemy Kohan, and that can delay your settling. It's getting engaged while you're trying to build your settlement. But at the same time, he might not be afraid of that because BoNT tends to play a little defensive.
Yeah,
so maybe he's doing a little mind game, getting some eco up.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it's, in theory, it might not be the right play, but he's playing the player here. He knows BoNT, he knows who he's playing against, and he knows he can maybe get away with being a tiny bit more greedy here. And as you see, I think both players did the same thing, went for their Ancient Ruin, and then on Vargen we got this little Megalith that's pretty close to the Ancient Ruin that's going to give you an additional 40 gold. So both players took the little bit of extra time just to run their units down to both the Ancient Ruin and the Megalith and get them off to a bit of a better economic start. Over here we saw Tau immediately after the upgrade went for Engineers, so he's really delaying his scouts here. But I guess,
Yeah.
On a map like Vargen, perhaps it is a little less necessary. There's not like any weird corners that you have to scout. There's not like any indies in the middle of the map that you have to scout. I guess there is a little bit less that you have to kind of keep tabs on your opponent, which isn't to say that you still shouldn't get scouts ASAP, but I can understand if any map, this is the map where you can delay your scouts a little bit.
Yeah, as Nationalist especially, because you tend to use them for taking indies and layers, the scouts really are nice at that point, but if you're not, essentially he's delaying his timing on both his indie, his first slot, and his bandits by just going settlers into engineers. Still collecting his mines, he's just trying to benefit from those. And, yeah. He's going to need some kind of mobility or extra force to start taking out those layers and indies.
He immediately got his wood, and he went for a very quick... Oh, very interesting. He went for very quick summoners. He went for Footman Summoners before going for Scout. Yeah, and this is not what we've been seeing. Pretty much every other game, I think he's been going kind of total econ in his main, where he's just gone for that Quarry Woodmill, got the Carpentry Guild, and then went for Iron Export Bank, reselling the Carpentry Guild, getting Woodmill. But this time, keeping the iron up, not even building an econ building out of that, and went for the immediate library to get those summoners. And let's look at what Kohan he has. He's got Balthazar and Kendra. Kendra, the blessing Kohan. I don't know what else there is
She's
to
pretty
say about her.
standard, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly. She's a very
She has
standard list.
blessing and she has decent melee stats. Okay hit point gain, and she scales pretty adequately as she levels.
And then we got Balthazar. In my mind, he's kind of, the other end. We're just a very standard fireball thrower.
Well, the thing that makes him special is that he only has Fireball. He doesn't use Mystic Shield, he doesn't use anything else to pad out his cast time. And
Oh,
as
yeah,
such,
that's a really
he will
good
throw
point.
more Fireballs than other Kohans.
Interesting. That's a really good point. So it looks like BoNT was
Yeah.
up here scouting a little bit. Meanwhile, as you see, Tau has taken his bandit. Only waited for a couple footmen there because he knows that he needed just that little bit extra to add on to the engineer part to get
Yeah.
that bandit layer. And he's up to 75 gold.
Um,
And man, it went for a
in
wood
regards to the
exploit.
Kohan, if he were to switch the companies that they were on, with the blessing going on to engineers and Balthazar being with the summoners, it might be a little more effective for him.
Interesting. Why do you say that right now?
Simply because the blessing on the engineer goes a bit further because they have better combat stats.
Yep.
Um,
We kind of missed that.
Oh,
BoNT came in
yeah,
and snuck it. And that's
that
very
is painful.
easy. It is painful, but it's something you have to watch out for on this map in particular. The place where your settlement usually goes is usually about here where Tau put it, and then it really leaves that Ironwood open for raiding. So you really have to watch that.
And I'm pretty sure you actually can't position it close enough to cover that wood mine by design, which means you're either going to want to leave some footmen there or have some scouts nearby, to drag any enemies into the militia or zone of guard. Without that, you're playing a little bit greedy, leaving that exposed and grabbing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I really like that from BoNT. We were talking about how he has to kind of play the harassing aggressor as Royalist in this matchup on this particular map, and he seems to be doing an okay job. For BoNT's incredibly conservative macro playstyle, just going up and raiding that was a great play. And now he too is going over here and is going to take his bandits. And I think it should be fine. He's got these long infantry out. He's got his scouts out. Let's look at the heroes on his side. Daria and Dylan.
These are some of the better Kohan for Royalist. Daria is essentially one of the better cleric Kohan in the game.
Yeah.
And typically, Royalists, they have weaker Kohan. But Daria, she's kind of the exception to that.
And Dylan coming in with protection, too.
Ooh. Yeah, double protection Gohans. And this guy not only has that, but pretty decent melee stats if you were to shove him in there. I think they both actually are alright at melee for early game. You can set them to engage in some of these less dangerous, battles.
For sure. So it got a little hairy here, and BoNT had to retreat, but it looks like he's going to be able to take his bandit just fine. And BoNT has his Gari, and Tau just took his Gari as well. So both of them are sitting pretty even. They both have 3 settlements. Tau has an econ of plus 52, whereas BoNT has an econ of plus 56. So they're very, very neck and neck right now. Like pretty similar openings. Tau went for that really fast summoner company, that really quick tech. But on top of that, he's kind of added some econ and stayed in the game in a really good way. Finally getting his first scouts out at the 9-minute mark.
Right. And fixing that wood does help. That did quite a bit of damage. Not only did he invest the wood, he then lost his GPM afterwards, and it slowed some of his progression. That probably delayed his scouts because of the wood deficit.
So we see BoNT here, sold the quarry in his main and got a library. So it looks like he's going to be going for those sorceresses again that we've been seeing every single time in this series. It seems to be a strategy he really, really likes against Nationalist, as we remember him doing it against the game against you in particular on Destiny. He's been really liking that build. And, oh, look at this. Yeah. Double Bowman with Sorceress coming out. That is a bold play.
I like that. Yeah. If you're going to do this, I actually think it's better to have more companies early. You set yourself up for aggression. You don't want to trickle them out. 1 company of Sorceress is dangerous. 2 company of Sorceress is deadly.
Yeah, for sure. And, as we were talking about the first game, Sorceress definitely is one of those units that you really do want to reach a critical mass. If you have an army with just 2 Sorceresses in the back, their impact is not going to be felt nearly as much as if you have 4, and especially once you start to have 6.
Yeah. And they will win some of these trades early, too, because they stun the elementals, and they're resistant to that magic damage from the Earth Stomp. They're resistant to Balthazar's Fireball. You know, it goes a long way in this matchup.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty good answer as just a counter to the constant golem harass that we see from Nationalist all the time. And I think that's really where
Oh
BoNT
yeah,
was coming from in making those companies as an anti-nationalist
yeah.
strategy.
And that's a good point too. It gives them an early timing versus Nationalist. That's not at the start of the game, but you know, a little bit past that. And if you trust that your enemy's making those elementals, then it's gonna go a long way.
Absolutely. So now he's coming out here. He's got some sorceresses in battle. Tau had built this forward outpost, really trying to do a bit of a push here. And I think what Tau is seeing is that BoNT is not far behind in the tech. I think Tau might have been expecting himself to be a little bit ahead because he went for that early library. But coming down here and now seeing what BoNT has out, Tau now knows that, you know, BoNT is playing Vargen just as much as Tau is. They're both really hunkering down in terms of getting early military and early tech because they know what a small map this is and how quickly the games can progress into just a big brawl in the middle of the map, you know? And we have Bowman with double magicians coming out from Tau. So he is adding...
This is a good follow-up to Summoner.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it seems to be what he needs right now. I like that play. You know, you don't see magicians all too often. You know, people seem to get more focused on their faction-specific tech. But magicians can just be great back row DPS when you need it.
Oh yeah, and behind Militia, like this outpost, it would have been great if he could hold on to it. And as you can see, these sorcerers are going to be taking it kind of slow because they can't damage buildings with their spell. You know, they just kind of sit there and let the archers plink away at it. Maybe he can move the sorcerer into melee range. We'll see if that's what he's doing. No, it looks like he's just going to take it with the melee companies.
So it's interesting that he decided to put Daria on his... you know, DPS bowman, giving that heal and protection is usually much more focused on a frontline company, but he decided to put him on the archers instead.
Yeah, if he intends to use this company forward versus the summoners, it would make sense. You know, she has an AoE heal which protects from the Earth Stomp, and the extra DV goes a long way versus AoE damage.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, protecting from the Earth Stomp, protecting from the magicians. And it could even be, too, that he just wants to have a better chance of getting Daria leveled up, and he thinks that there's going to be more kills coming from that archer company.
Oh, that's a sound point. Yeah, I hadn't considered that. And she scales excellently with levels. She gets bonus DV, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, and look at this. BoNT has been settling a lot behind the military action we've been seeing, which is pretty standard for BoNT. And as we see more settlers, 2 more settlers coming out. Holy shit. Even on the smallest map in the game, he still wants to settle every possible inch of that map. He is sitting at 5 total settlements, whereas Tau is still on his 3. And Tau is... he's not looking the greatest here. You know, plus 58 versus BoNT's plus 52. So their econ is pretty neck and neck, but BoNT is just soaring ahead in terms of military. 8 companies versus 3. And then that population is just going through the roof as he's continuing to get all these villages, all of them getting wood to support these bow companies with sorceress.
And the quality of his units is actually considerably higher than Tau's.
Yeah.
Getting that Kaldonite settlement is huge on this map. If you build a library or whatever, for Tau, that'd be 8 mana if he were to take that, do carpentry, do library, right? For BoNT, it looks more like he's just, what is it? That's 4 mana there, some wood. He's just paying off his bowmen and sorcerers.
That's all he's doing. Look, all he has is a wood mill in both of these new settlements, just trying to pay for those.
We have to expect a push soon. Yeah, he has to make this a clean timing, because if he gives Tau too much time, and as you can see, he's doing paladins on Gowry.
Yep. And
they are spell immune already, but you know, paladins do just have good melee stats as well. So not to be overlooked. That courage can also help them stick out a bit longer.
They absolutely do. I mean, if you look at the components in the Gowry, I think he might have been going for Strangler tech, but then he changed his mind, because he had you know, you got to get the garrison and a temple for him, I believe is what it is, and he had the barracks there, but then he just sold it for a market. So it looked like he might have been a little indecisive in what he was doing with that Gowry. But got a good company out of it, although this attack from BoNT is looking really scary. He's moving right in there. He's got this powerful DPS that we've been talking about with a really annoying sorceress. BoNT is playing a pretty good game. He's being as aggressive as BoNT can be.
And he's settling forward. This is very perilous. This is a rush. This is an all-in timing somewhat, but as you can see, he has a good econ,
He has a great econ
and
behind it.
there's no reason if you've had the victories that you've had in this game so far to not just push this to its logical conclusion. You just double down on your early game units and try and eke out a win.
Yeah, I mean, their economies are so similar right now, but BoNT is still just, ahead in unit quality and ahead in just raw numbers of companies. And he's got that kind of critical mass that we were talking about. 6 sorcerers in the back. Even though his front line looks a little bit piddly, it almost doesn't matter because he's just going to be able to cast so much freeze on these enemies. Not going to against this company, and that was really good of Tau to kind of lead in with that company, but they're going to get decimated from all that DPS. Sorceress aside, just all those bows going into them is going to take them down so quickly. The rest of Tau's army is coming in here, but they are really, really getting wrecked by all of these archers. It doesn't even matter that BoNT doesn't have a front line, because look at all of Tau's units going down.
Yeah, his front line served its purpose. They got destroyed by those magicians, but they're still alive and they got to retreat. I think those scouts may have died, but yeah, it's looking all right.
Man,
and,
Kendra just got frozen. Ooh. 23, she's done. Oh my god. Engineers and hammers go down. It looks like these bowmen are going to go down too. Oh my god, Balthazar is going down. That was absolute decimation. 3 of Tau's companies, which is pretty much all of his military, just got destroyed there. And again, pretty much just because the sorceresses were able to catch all of them before they had any chance to retreat.
Yeah, and he really was fighting into greater numbers here. You want to utilize your militia in a circumstance like this and have your units kind of engage behind them, but that would involve sacrificing his wood mine definitely in this. So maybe he was a little concerned. It's a tough spot to be in, honestly.
It really is. Yeah, Vargen, the kind of the terrain of your base, it is weird the way engagements happen, because you do want to engage at that choke point, but that's never where a settlement goes down because it's too close to the population zone of your main. So if you're on the defensive, it definitely is a good idea to get an outpost down there.
Yeah, down there or next to your wood mine, just create this line of zone of guard that enemies can't pass.
And here we go. BoNT is moving in for the kill. I think he's, especially after last game when he kind of had some opportunities to move in for the kill and didn't. This game, he is just balls to the wall. He says, fuck this. If I have the advantage, I'm going to take it. I'm going to win this game. And that looks like what might be happening very, very soon here. These 2 Lancer companies came up from behind. Tau or BoNT was just putting in extra resources just to get whatever military he can. And this is looking absolutely horrible for Tau. And I do not see a win happening in this circumstance. I think BoNT had just really, really played this well and did exactly what he had to do in this map against this opponent.
And you had a very good read there. I think he was going for that Yaoi Strangler tech, which would have been very effective versus Sorcerers, actually. However, I think he hesitated a bit too much in the transition, or he slipped up on his macro. If he had gone for it first thing first, he may have been able to get it out.
Yeah, and this is it. Tau says GG. And there we have it. The series is over. BoNT has won 2-1. And that was a good series.
Yeah, it was. It was a fantastic series, honestly. I think it really shows like the back and forth between this matchup. We gotta talk a lot about that, and also just like the meta on these maps. They're pretty drastically different, and you have to play these maps very different. Typically, than you would expect. There's no standard build open. There's just these. You kind of you play to the map and the resources you have. On this map, early aggression, Galvanite Mine, very effective.
Yeah, and we were talking about at the beginning of the game, Tau went an unusual choice for this map by going for settlers first, and it might have bit him a little bit, and he tried to go for that early tech, which he didn't utilize all that much. I think it was about the 12-minute mark by the time he actually made a push, which he could have had Footman Summoner in a more standard build at that time as well.
Yeah, he kind of just had them early, and he didn't necessarily use them for anything besides that he couldn't have had otherwise. Like, maybe if you want to rush these summoners, you could settle first on that Caldonite mine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do double summoners, figure out some way to take the dragon, something you can utilize. Maybe steal your enemy's bandits. As you saw, it took BoNT quite a bit to get to those bandits on his side.
Yeah, and he absolutely
It,
could have gone for a move like that.
yeah, it feels like he had an idea, but he didn't have a complete thought.
Yeah, I agree, and we saw that with the Gari as we were talking about. He had the idea to go for Strangler tech, and seems like he hesitated. Ended up making a different party because he wasn't quite at the tech yet. The timing didn't
Hmm.
work out. Um, yeah, he had some great ideas, and he tried to play the player, as we said, by going for a more macro opening that you wouldn't expect in this map. But BoNT, responded as he needed to by going a bit more aggressive, going a lot more aggressive than he usually plays, and trying to finish out the
Yeah,
game on the small map.
he really smelled blood in the water once he started that push and got that outpost down in the south, and that just was the beginning of the end for Tau there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great game played by both players. I really liked this whole series. I think BoNT and Tau in particular, just they're a good matchup for each other, and it led to some really interesting games.
Yeah, a good balance of macro and cheese play from both of them. Sorcerers aren't actually a typical build order for Royalist, a lot of the time you see Royalists, they like those horse archers and stuff. Throughout this entire series, BoNT has been using these, and throughout the tournament, I think, kind of making it a staple of his army. He's using them well, though. So,
He is.
you
I
know, yeah.
I I definitely like to play against Nationalist. At least I don't know if he was using the sorcerer's tech against other factions as much, but um, yeah, I really I like the innovation. I like it countering what Nationalist has, which isn't to say that going something more standard with horse archer heavy play wouldn't have been
Hmm.
just as good or better in a different player. But he played something that suited his style and that I think served him pretty well, and he had a lot of success using these sorceresses.
Yeah, and it is hard to play around those if you're not expecting that crowd control. You start losing companies, as you saw earlier in that first fight. One of his summoners dies before his company dies, and that company is not nearly as effective when it's got half of the casters. So,
Absolutely.
eh, anyhow, yeah, this was a great series, and just been a pleasure casting it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that about wraps up this video. We're definitely going to have more. We got more from the tournament to cast, and after that, hopefully, we'll get on to casting some newer games that are happening. But yeah, everybody stay tuned for more. And thanks for watching this series. Thank you so much, Flute, for casting with me. I really look forward to doing more, and
Yeah, same here.
look forward to doing everything more with this Kohan community. I love you guys.
All right.